Now let's talk about NATO's intervention in Kosovo. Framed as a humanitarian mission, a necessary response to ethnic cleansing and atrocities. But Chomsky, as you might expect, offers a very different perspective. He questions the very notion that it was solely, or even primarily, about humanitarianism. He argues that the intervention served multiple strategic interests for the United States. First, it solidified U.S. hegemony in a strategically important region. The Balkans, historically a powder keg, now had a significant NATO presence, a way to contain Russian influence and project Western power. Second, Chomsky argues it was a way to punish Serbia, not just for Milosevic's actions, but for resisting the neoliberal economic order that the West was so eager to impose. Remember, Yugoslavia, even under Milosevic, was never fully on board with the kind of shock therapy capitalism that was being pushed by the IMF and the World Bank. And here's where it gets really interesting. Chomsky points to the words of Strobe Talbott, a high-ranking official in the Clinton administration. Talbott, in his own memoirs, acknowledged that a key factor in the decision to intervene was Serbia's resistance to youth economic programs. This isn't Chomsky speculating, this is a youth official admitting, in black and white, that economic interests played a significant role. So, while the humanitarian crisis in Kosovo was very real, Chomsky urges us to see the bigger picture. To ask ourselves, was NATO truly acting as a benevolent force, a global police force for good? Or were they, as Chomsky argues, pursuing a geopolitical agenda, using the language of human rights to mask their true intentions? Let's talk about the media's role in all of this. Because you can't discuss the Yugoslav wars, or any conflict for that matter, without addressing the power of narrative. Chomsky argues that Western media, far from being neutral observers, played a key role in manufacturing consent for intervention. Think back to the lead-up to the Kosovo War. Remember the images, the stories that flooded our TV screens? Refugees fleeing violence, tales of Serbian brutality, the specter of another Holocaust in the heart of Europe. These images, these stories, weren't fabricated, but Chomsky argues they were carefully curated, amplified, to evoke a very specific emotional response. A response that would make military intervention not just palatable, but seemingly necessary. He points to the language used: ethnic cleansing, genocide, barbaric acts. These terms, loaded with moral weight, serve to dehumanize the Serbs, to portray them as monsters who could only be stopped by force. And what was often missing from this narrative? Any serious discussion of alternative diplomatic solutions, any acknowledgement of the complexities of the conflict, or the potential consequences of military action. Chomsky argues that the media, whether consciously or unconsciously, internalized the government's narrative. They became, in his words, stenographers to power, uncritically reporting official statements, amplifying the voices of those who supported intervention, while marginalizing dissenting voices. And this is where the propaganda model comes full circle. Because when the media fails to challenge the official narrative, when they present a simplified, often black and white version of events, it becomes incredibly difficult for the public to form informed opinions.